Hi, I'm Emilia, a holistic nutritional therapist and the founder of Your Optimum Nutrition. And today I'm meeting with the wonderful Naomi Light, who's a couples therapist and a relationship coach. I've personally known Naomi for over 5 years. We met at a networking event, and she then became my personal therapist, who became a dear friend as well, as she took me through some challenging moments of my life. And one of them was around becoming a mother. I think the first couple of sessions we had were around the time when I was pregnant, and I started to realize the shift in me as a person, started looking for purpose in life and all sorts of things, and sort of reevaluate how I want to live my life moving forwards. But the reason why I met her today is because we spoke about challenges in relationships between parents. And what I took away from this conversation was that feeling of I really would like other parents to be a bit more aware of what's to come when they have a baby, when that dynamic between just the two of them turns into, 2+1 and a family. This is something I've personally experienced in my relationship. The reason why we had our son in the first place is because we were so happy together. We wanted, to almost extend that and expand on that by having a child. But actually having a child really changed the dynamics of our relationship, and we were going through some crises as well. So the conversation today is there to bring some awareness to some of the challenges that parents may have, and also practical tips and practical advice on how parents can sustain their connection as partners as well as being a parent at the same time. So I'm sure you're gonna get away with a lot of useful advice, and yeah, that's it from me. We're gonna move on to the conversation with Naomi now. Thank you so much for joining me in this conversation. As we begin, could you tell me a little bit more about who is it that you're helping with, mostly in your clinic?
Yeah, so as a couples therapist, I work with couples at every stage of their relationship. So it could be that they've been together for a year, or they've been together for 35, 40 years, and with a variety of challenges. At the moment, about 2/3 of the people I see are parents at different stages. So it is very common for us to need to adapt to and work through the particular challenges of raising the family at whatever stage it is in my work. And I'm a parent as well. I have 3 children, so a lot of the things obviously that I can understand or can support people with, I draw from my own experience and remember what it was like to go from being 2 to 3 or 3 to 4, and how demanding and how incredible, wonderful it is for a relationship to bring a new person into the world.
Yeah, so let's focus on the first-time parents then.
Yeah.
Because I think that transition from 2 to 1, as you named it, is probably the first time when you get hit with the profound change of different dynamics within the family, and of course the demands of attending to a baby.
Yes.
It's often a wonderful experience, but it's got its challenges. So can you share a little bit more about what are the common challenges that couples face within that sort of first and second year of bringing a baby home?
Yeah, common challenges, yeah. And just for the background on this, the research says that for all couples, 2/3 report a lower satisfaction rate with relationship over the first year of life. So it's pretty universal that this is a huge transition. It's a huge transition in identity, going from being a pre-mother to a mother. When a child is born, so is a mother, and the same for fathers. It's a huge identity transition, but it's an identity transition for the couple. I think the first significant change is in time. So the workload triples. It's this very small person comes with a mountain of things to do and time that they take. And corresponding to that, and this is a huge one, is energy shift. So burnout is a huge thing, exhaustion is a huge thing. After 30 days of interrupted sleep, the symptoms that you experience are the same as having clinical depression. So exhaustion, irritability, an increase in conflict, inability to think, let alone inability to feel and know how you feel. This is everybody is dealing with this in the transition from going from 2 to 3.
And how often do I hear young mums, including myself, saying something along the lines of, I can't recognize myself anymore. This isn't me. Why am I acting like this? Why am I behaving like this? Now you've explained it very well. Yeah. I remember
particularly those first 5 to 10 days of hormonal craziness, of bursting into tears. Every time I met somebody, who I had any connection with, it was like the more I liked them, the more the tears would come, because I was just unrecognizable to myself. The hormone changes are intense, and there's the real low parts as well. The uncontrollable upset, or the just feeling really low, and feeling guilt, feeling like I'm not doing it right. It's very difficult to accurately perceive how you're going to feel before the baby. I mean, I spent hours and hours thinking about it and imagining how I'd be with my baby, and discovering that actually I felt overweight and grumpy and permanently tired and blotchy somewhere or other, and feeling desirable, finding the energy to connect with my husband, and feeling good about myself. It took a major adjustment. And so for your clients who are in that stage, real simple, easy to translate advice or focus for the relationship part of it is, I think, enormously helpful.
I agree. So let's imagine this situation. We're a couple and we have a, let's say, 3-month-old baby. So we're kind of on the other side of this postnatal phase where things are starting to fall into place. We're starting to build some routine around, attending to the baby. If women are breastfeeding, they often find that around the 3rd, 4th month, the milk supply is a bit more regular, predictable, the feeds are at more sort of certain intervals, the baby tends to sleep in a more predictable pattern as well. So what could couples do, those simple steps, simple techniques like you suggested, that could allow them to slowly bring that connection back together and recreate that space of you and I as a couple, not just you and I as parents.
So I think there's 3 main connection points that I would encourage couples to look at. The first is what I call small things often. So it's the rituals of the day. It's the culture you create, the very micro connection points you have. Think of the first moments when you wake. Often that is because the baby is crying, perhaps it's the kind of first wake time of the morning, and what happens in those first moments? Are you able to turn to each other in any way, or actually are you so kind of groggy or so exhausted that you're staggering around and crawling out of bed? The meal times you share together, how does messaging happen between you during the day? So the first one is small things often. The second one is sharing time together, quality time together. So this is as the space to have a 10-minute catch up. Maybe one of you's holding the baby, or the baby is just gnawing on something, or drinking a bottle. A 10-minute catch up, a half an hour cup of tea, or sharing a glass of wine. If you're breastfeeding, but those are the quality time parts of the relationship we can speak about. And then the third thing would be, how do you manage conflict? How do you make decisions together? How do you deal with these new experiences from a way that includes both perspectives? Both of you need to bring your truth to the table, be heard by the other, and whatever solution you come up with to the challenge of the moment needs to be a combination of the two. We call that often managing conflict. So shall I talk a bit more about?
Yeah, that's fascinating, and I think it would be great to actually hear an example of, okay, how could I actually start my day on a different note?
Yes.
Just to make that partner feel that, you know, the connection is still there, and it's not his fault that the baby woke up, or it's not my fault, you know, just how can we go beyond that?
Yes. Yeah. So partings and reunions, including how you first greet each other and last thing at night, they're a key part of this idea of small things often. And really simply say good morning to each other would be, you know, would be a step that everybody could look to involve. So how do you greet each other? Good morning, sweetheart. You know, and if you can include some touch before you have to go and attend to the baby, that would be one step. I think how you notice and appreciate each other, small things throughout the day, making an effort to thank each other for the small, big things that you do, but also the way you are with each other. You know, give yourself 5 reasons right now to appreciate your partner. You know, thank you for listening to me. Thank you for playing with our baby. Thank you for you know, replying to people who've given us gifts. Thank you for booking our holiday in the summer. There could be many, many things that they've done, but also what is it about them uniquely that you appreciate? Thank you for the way that you're calm. Thank you for the way that you bring fun. Thank you for, you know, the way that your interest in this helps me to discover more about life. You just have to sometimes think through the words, and the language that you use is so important.
And something I want to comment on here is I do encourage my clients to start to notice how their body's feeling a bit as we progress with our nutrition and lifestyle program. And I find that they actually find it quite challenging at the beginning to be a bit more mindful about these things and to actually start writing down, you know, I'm really happy for the fact that, or I do appreciate today, or you know, I've got a lot of gratitude for. But they do also find that the more they practice it, the easier it becomes. So when you were speaking about those, you know, little moments of thankfulness or appreciating each other, you know, I thought about some people might be thinking, oh, you know, this is really new to me. This may feel odd, or what if I haven't got anything I can come up with in a given moment? I'd just say, you know, a word of encouragement. It's okay. Just start practicing, and it will come. It will get easier. Yeah, and what I'll do is put in the show notes a link to, I've got a resource on my website that is a simple 10-day guide to building appreciation into your daily connection, which offers you journal, you know, prompts for reflection, and then a question which could form a way of communicating appreciation to your partner. So it's a really good point. It takes practice, and the more we practice this, the more it's going to just be a natural part of who we are as a couple, not something that we effortfully do every day. So that's small things offered. Should we talk a bit more about quality time? Yeah, go on.
Yeah. So, you know, this is the big deal, isn't it? Just, you know, I never see you anymore. You're always with the baby. You know, or I've got the demands are up here for the changes, the feeding, the cleaning out the bottles, the clearing up after the baby, you know, the mountains of washing. I remember when my eldest, who's 15 now, was small, he had reflux for the first 6 months. And so for me, you know, as a brand new mum, just really trying to figure this out, every feed involved not just, you don't just have to change the baby's nappy, it was change everything the baby was wearing, change everything the baby had been sleeping on, so several sheets in a Moses basket.
Including your own clothes,
change
right?
your own. Yeah, so a clean pair of pajamas, because it was, it was just kept coming back up. And it was the emotions of, I have worked hard to produce that milk for you and it's not staying down. So we ended up with some Gaviscon that was thickening the milk, and thank goodness he weaned okay, because it was a big change and we didn't have to do all of this cleaning everything between feeds.
I went down the route of reusable nappies, so I can tell a lot about constantly.
Yeah, we tried those as well for a bit.
Bags and dirty nappies that really needed to be washed ASAP. So yeah.
So how, it seems like an impossibility. How do I create quality time? And my advice would always be start small. You can do 10 minutes. You can do 10 minutes in between. You've got 10 minutes while the baby plays or they're napping, or even it's the time to start introducing and bringing around you support to enable you as a couple to get some time together is as early as you possibly can. Being in the room but having somebody watching the baby, grandma, neighbours and, babysitting help is going to help not only everyone adjust to, it's okay for other people to be involved in small ways in caring for the baby, but also the importance on, and we need time too. Yeah. We do need time, because that connection, like we were saying at the very beginning, that connection of supportive, loving, caregiving relationship between mum and dad is all round benefit for everyone. It's not just a great idea, it's absolutely essential. So take 10 minutes, have a cup of tea, and if you've got that small window, you can ask each other, and what's happening for you? How are you doing today? Don't give me the list of the jobs you've done, or how work was, or what's going on with the people in our community. But tell me, how are you doing? Okay. And starting to realise again that you're important to each other and get to know each other's inputs.
That's a wonderful idea. I am thinking about that moment of reconnecting. So is there anything that couples can do to bring them into the space of, okay, now the baby's taking care of someone, or she's asleep or whatever. This, the dinner is cooking. Okay, so how do we switch from being engaged in all of that sort of, noise around us, or coming straight from work, or dealing with on a phone call with something, to that moment of, okay, we have 10 minutes.
Yes.
How can we bring each other to each other?
Yes. And it's a really good question. I think when you have a culture and you can develop the habit of naming your needs, so feelings and needs, you could fill in the blanks on this statement. I feel a bit low today. I feel challenged by this new stage that the baby's in. I feel lonely, disconnected. Or it could be a positive feeling. I'm feeling a little bit more alive. I had a few hours sleep last night. And what I need is, and name the positive need. This is really important, because clients that I work with, and me as well, at times, we're so aware of what we haven't got and what we're missing, and what we can say is, and I need you to be around more. I need you to get home from work at 5 o'clock, assuming that's the way that they're dividing things. And we must state a positive need, because a positive need is heard as an invitation, a negative need is heard as a criticism.
And who likes to respond to criticism?
Yeah, exactly. So name the feelings in it. I feel and I need, fill in the blanks. And if that can be part of your 10 minutes, and you can find ways to then meet each other's needs, that is going to build a real felt sense of being cared for, and which leads to attachment. This bond of here is somebody to whom I'm important, and they mean the one to me as well. So very practically naming feelings and needs. And then the third area we talked about was managing conflict. So in my couple work, I work with a methodology called the Gottman method. And one of the really great things about this research-based intervention is it names 4 key no-nos for communication and then their antidotes. So the 4 are, and you can look it up, the 4 horsemen of the apocalypse. You can look it up and read all about it. So the 4 are criticism, which we just mentioned, defensiveness, contempt, and stonewalling. So I'll just explain the last two because defensiveness is very obvious. But contempt is any way in which we look down on our partner by not only criticising them but by characterising them. So
can you give us an example?
So an example of this might be, criticism could be you're fussing. Can you stop fussing over the little details? Contemptuous would be, and you're just like your mum. Oh, okay. She's always fussing. So there's a real, there's a real attack of somebody's character. Contempt often, can be seen in name calling. So, any way that you are putting down your partner by calling them names, obviously, nasty names, that becomes really, really hurtful to somebody's sense of worth and their self-esteem. Eye-rolling, sneering, snarling, making public derisions of your partner, big, big no-no. So, and out of the 4, contempt is the biggest. The research shows contempt is the biggest predictor of the demise of a relationship. Okay, and stonewalling is where you go away. You may be there physically, but you've disconnected. There's the blank stare, or the silence, averting the gaze, and it may be actually leaving the room, walking away, hiding, locking yourself in the room. And we can see as I talk about them, they're very common. They're kind of instinctive, natural responses, and having these in your relationship isn't a disaster, but it does mean that you're going to need to repair. You're going to need to find the repair and find ways to go back and sort out the disconnection, and then use different ways of communicating in those conflict situations to strengthen the relationship.
So how do you know when to look for help? How can you recognise that it's, between us, we can't really move past a certain stage or a problem or a conflict or a challenge?
That's a really good question. And it's not one that gets asked often, because I think we are still not very good at the idea that this important part of life probably needs some support at some time. And I'm of the philosophy that if a relationship at some point could get support, then it's gonna benefit everyone. So how do you know if you're going to need support with the relationship? There's a few key things I think to look out for. One would be repeating cycles of conflict. So that feeling of we've been here before, it goes this way every time, and I can now see, looking back, that we're just going round and round, because you probably would have solved it by now if you could. So identifying patterns of disconnection, seek help, whether that is read a good book, get hold of some resources, or go and see somebody who's trained and can see the dynamics going on and break the circuit of that conflicting cycle.
It takes a lot of energy to be in that conflict, and if you repeat it without having it resolved, I think it's so much harder to then meet your partner again and try and tackle it again and again and again, and with every time it comes back, you feel less engaged or have less hope that it's actually going to be resolved.
That's so true. Yeah, that's so true.
Let's not waste energy on something that you perhaps haven't got the tools to resolve by yourself right now, and just accept it.
So true. When we've already said that that's one of the big hitters in the first year of new baby's life is the energy drain on parents. So it makes sense that it's just identifying, naming it, and saying this is a problem, let's get some help.
Mm-hmm.
And then there's, levels of distress, so for some people at times or in some situations, then conflict can be really distressing and really upsetting for partners. So as professionals, what we can do is create safety so that some of the hardest conversations can be had in a way that is guided, and where couples on their own would really struggle to perhaps name it or go through the whole of the stages of repair and reconnection. They are much more successful when there's somebody in the room to guide them.
Yeah, I also thought there's an element of, if you're working with someone, you have to find ways to, for example, care for your child, and you're actually creating that space and dedicating that time to that conversation or that conflict. Otherwise, it's probably quite easy to try and tackle it alongside day-to-day operations, so you're not actually fully listening to each other. You're not actually giving your full attention, right? So actually removing yourself from that, going into a different environment is probably also quite supportive, I imagine.
It just creates the accountability that we said we would come for this time, and that space gets bookmarked and reserved just for the couple. So I find often that just in the act of booking in to come and see me, clients will say, actually it's been loads better this last week. Yes, because your subconscious mind has started to relax and not need to feel so defended, because you can see that this time is coming.
Right, yeah. And you've also committed that actually this is important and we're going to do something about it. So, Naomi, I wondered whether we can now imagine a family whose child is a bit more independent. They perhaps have a nanny or a childminder or someone they can leave their child with for more than, as long as the nap lasts for. And they can actually plan some quality time together as a couple, but they haven't been doing it for quite a long time. And it may feel, people may have all sorts of feelings. They may be excited. They may also be a bit scared about, what we're going to do. How are we going to spend that time? So, have you got any advice on how to plan that time together? How to make sure that the expectations are met? How can the couple ensure they actually have the same needs and that they are being met?
And inevitably those first few times where you're away from your small charge for the first time, you end up talking about the baby the whole time. And so of course we know that's what we do. We just go and talk about all the things that have been happening with the baby. But if you can establish a regular date night, you can book your babysitter up or book the childcare up so that it's a regular date night. You've got a couple of hours of kind of reliable time, especially when some of the other things we've talked about, small things often, a sense of connection and importance for each other is in place. This becomes an anticipated time together. So what can couples do when they're having some good time together? Well, if we talk about getting to know each other and how are you, what's been happening for you, sharing dreams. Sometimes it may be that in that time is when conflict management needs to happen. So we need to do some really good listening, summarising, maybe validating what your partner has said, so that those important decision-making, conflict-resolving conversations can happen in the time, with a good amount of time for it. Often that is inevitably when conflict conversations can happen well. You've got some time together. But don't neglect having fun. Find some things to do that will lighten both of your faces up, and where you can get out of the house and go to your favourite restaurant, where you can go and have an experience together, where you can, if it's light outside and you can get into nature, if that's the kind of thing that replenishes you. Find ways to have fun together and to re-establish that sense of usness, the couple identity. Are there any rules around that time that you would suggest people put in place? For example, if we are having that time,
these are the things that we do, and these are the things we really try and avoid, because if we include that in our quality time together, that's no longer going to be that. And then the association of the quality time together is going to be, okay, we're going to talk again, or we're going to, I'm going to hear something again that I'm not doing right.
Yes. Yeah, the couple coming up with their own version of that, their rules of what do we need this to be, is an absolutely great approach. The Gottmans, they talk about this idea of the State of the Union meeting, which sounds really heavy. But it could be answering the question, how can we get the most of this time that we've got together? What should this be? Is there any no-nos? We've had too much conflict recently. Let's not go for the big heavy conflict conversations. Let's keep it around the safe topics that we know we both agree on. That could be something for a couple to do. Or I want to find ways to delight you and bring you pleasure and comfort. It's kind of leading us on to talking about how physical intimacy, when we get not only consent but we make agreements on how can our relationship honour both of our preferences and needs around physical intimacy, which is a subject obviously that changes a lot through the period of having a first child. Both during pregnancy, sex will change. Immediately after the birth, sex will change. I was reading a story the other day from an author and a couples therapist. She's the author of the book Is There Sex After Kids? It's Ellen Kinderman, I think it's Kinderman or Kleiderman, can't quite remember her surname, but she's saying that after her first, she was going for her antenatal checkup with the doctor, and she said, how soon should we resume sexual relations with my husband? And the doctor said, well, let me examine you, and then gave her the news, well, you can start having sex now, it's fine. So once she got home to her husband, she told him, the doctor said 2 years, no sex for 2 years. That was really what she was hoping the news would be. So how soon can you resume sexual connection? Well, it's a matter for each couple to, like we were saying, have a conversation about. And
what does it mean to have a sexual connection, right? Or physical connection? It doesn't always have to mean the same things for the same people.
Yeah.
And I'm sure you're going to say that, tell us more about it, but just maintaining physical touch and physical contact, even if it's just, rubbing someone's shoulder or touching someone's face, is also often, it's very important, but it's also often a little bit neglected.
Yes, so non-sexual physical touch was, when we can talk about that and how the importance often increases during that time when sex is not possible because it's too close to birth, or for many reasons. How do you like to be touched? Do you like foot rubs? Do you like a massage? Do you like cuddling on the sofa? Do you like it when we hold hands when we're out? How do you like to be touched? And seeing these things not just as a prelude to sex, but as an aspect of the relationship that's going to strengthen connection, that's going to be stress reducing. The research shows that physical connection has a powerful effect on reducing stress. It just promotes all of the
oxytocin releases. And we say so much about it when we talk about the connection between, for example, the mother and the child, and making sure you allow for that sort of bare skin connection and holding each other. How important it is for the child's well-being and development. It of course is the same for two adults, right? Yeah. And I remember, especially once number 2 came along and then number 3, the sensory overload that as a breastfeeding mum of clinging children, you're having to soothe the baby to sleep, lots of cuddles, perhaps they're climbing all over you and pulling you out. And when you have been touched all day, sometimes the request for can we make love tonight, or the expectation to give each other physical touch can feel like one extra demand on your list. And what I say to couples in that stage is, particularly if it's
you know, the mum who's feeling touch overwhelmed,
Mm-hmm.
is can you see your partner's request for sex or initiation of sex or non-sexual touch as an invitation for connection, not as another demand to do. And when the couple practice and get good at talking about their sex life, then, you know, that can be a really good baseline to start from. You know, when you initiate in this way, it feels like it's just another thing to do. And how can you offer each other meaningful touch in ways that are kind of unique and individual to you as a couple, because you need to know that touch, that sensory connection, is going to ground you, to attune to each other, but also your sense of well-being. You know, sex helps women's skin and hormones, and, you know, sense of well-being within herself. Yeah, so sometimes it's just changing the conversation, reframing the conversation.
I think you said it a couple of times and I really like it. Know what you need and share what you need, or ask for what you need. Yeah. It's about, you know, on one hand I hear it's about setting boundaries of, actually, I don't feel like doing this. I don't feel like giving this to you right now because I myself feel depleted. At the same time, but what I would really need is that. And that allows conversation. And I'm sure, you know, if partner is attuned and is willing to be the best partner, that's all they want to hear, right? Yes. And that's all I would like to hear from my partner. If he honestly said, this is what would make me happy today, or this is what will make me feel better today. Yes. So just being a bit more honest and not as sort of intimidated or feeling like if we ask, then, you know, that means we ask for another, or we give another task to our partner. It's actually quite the opposite. We make it easier.
Yes. Yeah. So how will you talk about the conversation that says, yes, I think I don't necessarily feel like I'm in the mood right now, but perhaps I'm open to having sex, or definitely not. You know, this is a complete no, I'm too overwhelmed. How do you have that conversation as a couple? Some couples I know, they have a kind of scale system, you know, where 0 is absolutely no way back off, and 10 is quick, let's jump into bed. So, you know, they might say, honey, I'm at a 2, it's just not going to happen, but can we have a bath together, or, you know, can you make me a cup of tea? I'm at a 5, I'm a bit open to it. That sometimes being able to give that rating, it's not a rejection of, look, I don't want you. It is a way to respectfully but truthfully express your needs and your feelings in a particular moment.
Yeah, oh, wonderful. I think there's just one more question I would like to ask. Because of the demands of, you know, having a small child, and we're not just talking about babies, because I guess, I wonder if you agree, but I actually found most challenging the second year and the third year, because in the first year you're kind of adapting to everything. You're expecting yourself, most of us expect, we've got that maternity leave, we're expecting to, that's me time to, you know, get to know my child, to attend to their needs. Everyone says I'll be sleep deprived, you know, you kind of prepare yourself for it mentally. The second year, they become more independent, they're crawling, they're walking, they start saying things, communicate with you. So it's just a different challenge. And I wonder whether, and often women do go back to work at this stage. And there's also that feeling of guilt that maybe comes from, you know, separation from the child, from putting them in some childcare setting or having them attended by other adults. Is there anything around that second year of being a couple that may be slightly different to the first one that would be really helpful to be aware of, or, you know, prevent or predict, or have some tools in the toolbox in case the challenges arise at that stage? You know?
Yeah, and there's always tools I think we can remind ourselves of or equip ourselves with. And just as you're going through that really helpful list, I'm remembering what some of those things felt like, the decision to do I or don't I return to work. we'll make sure there's a link to this, but I use a tool called the Stress Reducing Conversation, which enables partners to talk about topics outside of the relationship in a way that helps them offload and be really heard and understood. So it's a very simple step-by-step process, but it keeps the focus not on fixing it, not on getting to an outcome, but on the quality of listening in the process. And when we can take our partner's side in a situation like, the child is, got this particular problem which is causing me stress, or, my mother-in-law, the boss at work, whatever it is, those outside of the relationships. When your partner can take your side, it's an opportunity to offer validation. I see you for who you are, which turns out to be even more important than the solution. So just, pulling people back from fixing it by using the stress-reducing conversation. Another tool that's freely available, and you can take a link through to the Gottman Institute website to get hold of, is the Card Decks app. So a lot of these question starters and prompts and inspiration are all catalogued on the app. So get it on your phone, and then when whichever topic it is that comes up, or a need for conflict resolution, or an opportunity to reconnect, redefine the relationship at whatever stage of your child's development, there's plenty of resources there for listening, for asking questions. There's some sex resources and intimacy resources, expressing needs, rituals of connection, ways that we work through the different connection points in our week, our month, or our year that are going to strengthen us as a couple. So I think that's kind of a catch-all resource that I could point people to. So again, I'll make sure I put the links for that into the show notes.
Oh, you've covered so much and shared so much valuable advice. My head is already processing it all. I'm just trying to think, what could we do as a couple just to enrich that relationship now that our son is older. He's more in the childcare sort of setting environment, and so thank you so much. I wonder if there's anything we would like to summarize with, something for people to take away from this conversation. If there was one most important piece of advice you would give to a couple of a young child, what would it be?
I think as I reflect on my own journey to and through parenthood, being really convinced of the priority of connection with your spouse when you have so many demands, sometimes shouting at you, the demands that not just as a good idea, but as a belief and as a value, that being the kind of couple that continue to invest in their relationship in the different stages and continue to respond to one another is not only going to be the best thing for the mum, the dad, the partners, but also for the well-being of the children. So children who sense that there are loving adults around them who are connected, children who see modelled for them, caregiving, loving interactions are going to be grounded in some really helpful and affirming experiences, and that the research shows that can't start too soon. So whether your baby is a day old, a month old, or a year-old, really finding within yourself that resolve and conviction that one of the things I must do is I must invest in myself through relationship, invest in the relationship I have with my partner, invest in connection, because I think it's one of the most, if not the most important investments you can make in life.
And it's the reason why you most of the time have children in first place, because of that relationship being so important to you. You want that extension of it in the form of a child. Yeah. Oh, thank you.
So it's been so
much.
lovely to talk to you and share these, thoughts and ideas with you. I'm looking forward. I'm sure this will be helpful to your viewers and listeners. I'm looking forward to continuing to collaborate.
How could anyone who listens to this today continue their journey with your support? So where can people find you? Where can they find those wonderful resources? We'll obviously link them, but can you tell us a bit more about how you work, where you work, and how can we learn more about you and your support?
So, the website has links to the social channels and the resources page. So download my resources, and then to explore working with me as a therapist, I work online and in person from the offices here in Petersfield, Hampshire. So there is a link to be able to book an exploration call and just to find out whether the work that I do can meet the needs of a couple at whatever stage they're at. So do feel free to book in if that's the next step for you.
Wonderful. Thank you so much.